This is Steve from Boxing UK in association with Supreme CBD. Sunday morning, Dave Coldwell, good to see you.
How are you, mate?
I'm all right. I'm a lot better after watching that result there.
Well, I've noticed it must be a good result because you've got the old badge showing.
I have, yeah. that only comes up when we win, Dave. That's why it looks brand new.
I'll put mine on.
Dave, have you slept since Canelo Bivol?
Yeah, I got a couple. Do you know what? I struggle to go back to sleep because I always do after a big fight. Adrenaline's pumping, but that, especially after that, Canelo getting beat. So yeah, it took me about an hour to get sleep, and then I had 2 hours, and then I was up for football. So yeah, I'm a little bit tired.
So can we have your thoughts on it, Dave? Were you one of the minority that expected that, or did you think Canelo was able to move up?
Yeah, I think it was. I couldn't understand the criticism of the fight when it was first made. People, when I say criticism, I mean people still saying that Canelo's ducking, swerving, doing this, ducking Charlo to fight Bivol, and I'm like, there's Bivol and Bertibiev that I think unanimously boxing fans see as number one, number two, whichever order it is.
Yeah.
So he's stepping up another division to go and test himself and challenge himself against one of the top two, potentially number one in the division. How is that ducking anybody? And so when you add to the fact that Bivol isn't at a faded stage of his career, he's at his business end of his career now. He's experienced. He's been a champion for a while. Physically, he's in great shape. I think 18 months ago they were talking about him possibly being able to still do 12 stone. I think it was during the pandemic. They were talking about possibly doing 12 stones because he wanted to fight Canelo. He would be willing to do that. So obviously 18 months on, a year on or whatever, physically matured even more. So maybe that might not be a possibility now. But I just feel physically and experience-wise and everything, you're getting Bivol at Bivol's best that he's been so far. So that's not ducking. That's testing yourself. And with Bivol's boxing ability and brain, not just me, the whole lot of us in the gym, we were like, people are sleeping on Bivol. We thought Bivol could win on points or beat Canelo, but we didn't know if he was going to get on points. People was like, do you really think he's going to get a decision? But we all fancied Bivol to win the fight.
You've touched on getting the decision, Dave. I don't know how did you score the fight as it was going?
They tried. There's no way that was 115, 113.
Yeah.
And I've been at football, so I've not been able to look at everything on social media. But I've seen somebody sent me a picture of the scorecards.
Yeah.
And he was up.
The first 4 rounds to Canelo, yeah.
No, there was always this joke where you say, "Oh, you're already 4-0 down before you go in," and things like that. Well, literally, that must have been it because it was never 4-0 up, never. And it just goes to show you, again, with judging. But Bivol boxed brilliant. I thought he boxed really, really well. He was comfortable throughout the fight. He dictated the distance. He dictated the pace, really. He didn't fall into any traps when Canelo at one point tried luring him in onto the ropes and trying to make him make a mistake. He didn't fall into any traps. He used his intelligence and his ring generalship and his boxing ability to completely outbox a great fighter in Canelo, because he is still great.
Yeah.
He is still great.
Do you think it was just a step too far with the weight, Dave, or do you think it was more that Bivol was hugely underestimated?
Do you know what? There's two sides of this. There's one where you look at it and you say, look, sooner or later, you keep moving up through divisions, especially when you're not massive like Canelo.
Yeah.
Yes, he's massive width-wise, but height, reach. Brendan always used to say to us that you can give away height and reach to somebody that's average, not bad, not too much of a distance, not too close to your ability. You've got that ability. But when you're going in against somebody that has the same sort of level of ability and is a very, very good fighter, and then you give away height, reach, weight, size advantage. That's too much. That's where it gets a little bit. But the thing is with Bivol, Bivol's not a massive light heavyweight in terms of thickness, size, strength. He doesn't use them sort of attributes in the way that he boxes. He's very athletic. He's very lean. And there was talk, like I say, about 18 months ago, a year ago, of him going down to super middleweight. So he's not a guy that you would think is going to be struggling to make light heavyweight. So I don't like to say, oh, it's just because of the weight, because it was Bivol's boxing ability, skills, fundamentals, sound defense, ring IQ, intelligence, and control of distance and feet. And it was that led to the downfall. But obviously, as you're going up through the weight divisions, your power that has a massive effect on the guys nearer to your natural weight is going to start diluting as you as you go up bigger. I mean, the commentary, the guys that were talking on the commentary, they sounded shocked that Bivol wasn't getting shook by these booming Canelo right hands and things like that. Well, number one, he was catching 99% of them on his arms and gloves. But number two, give Bivol a bit of credit. He's been at light heavyweight for years and years and years. He's an experienced amateur fighter, top guys. He's been world champion for about 5 years. He'll have sparred a lot of light heavyweights and cruiserweights, guys that can punch harder. So to think that he would, or as soon as Canelo touches him, that's going to be it, he's going to crumble. I think that does it. Are you blowing up Canelo's power to be something superhuman, as though he'll take you out with one shot and that's it? Or are you completely nullifying the fact that these bigger men are used to taking punch off of bigger men? Yeah. So I found that a little bit irritating. But no, listen, a bit of both. Bivol is used to being against bigger men, so the power was diluted. When you don't feel the power as much and you are sound defensively, you're not taking stupid shots, you can just do what you want to do, really. And mentally, you're very, very comfortable in there. And Canelo could never put Bivol under any sort of mental stress whatsoever during the fight.
Dave, I don't know if you've seen, but Canelo was still in the press conference saying that he's adamant that he won that fight and he wants the rematch.
He's saying he won it?
Yeah, he's convinced he won the fight.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I saw the interview straight after the fight. I thought, great, respect, because he's taking, he lost the fight, you know, he's quite accepting of it. And I understand he wants a rematch, great, because I like that about, listen, I love the talk about him saying, I want to fight Usyk, I want to fight these. Listen, he was never going to beat Usyk in a million years. Yeah. But I love the fact that him as an individual has that confidence and wants to test himself, because in an age where, you know, you have everybody chasing him that isn't willing to fight anybody because in case they get beat, and it might blow a chance. Well, if you're that confident, fight everybody, beat them, and then fight Canelo. But in an age where people don't want to fight each other because they're scared to get beat, Canelo's willing to take the risk and willing to get beat. But then if you turn, I haven't seen that press conference, if you turn around and say he won the fight, then, mate, you're just soaking in the usual bullshit at the judges, because you didn't win the fight. I mean, listen, I don't know if I was tired or whatever, but I thought it was about 9-3.
We scored at 9-3, did you? Yeah.
I had Bivol winning it by 9-3. 9. I thought the rounds where Canelo, where you can't, if somebody's out boxing here, somebody's jabbing you, right hands, jabbing you, pop. But if you land 2 big shots in a round, but not big where he's all over the place, but just somewhere the crowd can go, ooh, yeah, and ah, that doesn't give you a round.
Yeah.
That I mean? And there was a round where I think people kind of took off. I think for the first 2 minutes he hardly did anything. And then he came back with a little bit of a burst and then didn't do anything in for the last 30 seconds. And I thought, that's a Canelo round. But for the rest of it was quite, Bivol kind of did what he wanted. And there's no way that Canelo won that fight. And then Canelo started looking more tired as the fight went on, taking more and more shots as it went on. I generally don't see that. So I'm disappointed in that, if that's what he said. But he's a fighter, and fighters see, listen, in the aftermath of a fight, when fighters get beat, sometimes they say things, it's more about pride, other accuracy and clear thinking, which fair enough. But if he truly believes that, then he's caught up in that bubble and that hype a little bit too much.
I think so too, Dave. Dave, two very quick ones, because I know that we've got the afternoon game to watch. If you were advising Canelo, what would you advise next? The Triple G rematch is obviously the money fight, isn't it? Or the trilogy fight, sorry.
I don't know what the situation with this rematch clause thing is. I mean, again, this is the thing. I get rematch clauses when you're the champion, you're given a voluntary. Because if you get beat on a cut or something like that, you could be, you're winning a fight and you get beat on a cut. Things can happen, and then you've lost your title over something like that. And so I understand why rematch clauses take place. But you're challenging for a title. You shouldn't have a rematch clause in there. But Canelo's a superstar, so that is why, because they want to give him another shot at it. So fair enough, I understand. But if there's a rematch clause, then yeah, listen, stop loading up on one punch power, thinking that you're going to break everybody every time you hit them. Because we've been talking about this in the gym with the boys, and Canelo is a great fighter and I love what he does. But if you look at his last couple of fights now, he's getting more and more one-dimensional, where he's literally rigid, looking for one shot. Against Danny Jacobs, Golovkin fights, his trunk movement was very, very good, and he was defensively very, very sound coming forward. But now he's more reliant on that, taking him on the arms and gloves and bracing his neck to take the shot, to deliver the shot. And I just feel they slowed him down a little bit. There's not a lot going off in between the power punches, whereas before, even go back to the Cotto fights and things like that, there was a lot more going off, a lot more better use of the jab, little twitches, little feints. And I just feel as though he's kind of like gone more reliant on power base rather than his boxing, because he's a brilliant boxer. He does some outstanding things. So what I would like to see is him. I'm always intrigued when there's a rematch from when a superstar gets beat, an elite level fighter gets beat, because you want to see how they adjust going forward. Yeah. When he got beat by Mayweather, you saw things that he started doing that Mayweather did to him, and things that he started doing that he didn't do before. And then, like I said, now he's kind of stripped himself away a little bit, but he's a little bit more one-dimensional. So Bivol found it quite comfortable. I'm not going to say easy, but he never looked out of his comfort zone in that fight. So it'd be interesting to see what they do going back to the gym. It's when everyone's talking about your power, it's quite easy to get just wrapped up in all that, and your stablemates are all knocking everybody out and things like that. So then you go power based. So maybe he gets back to a little bit of his smarts and his skills as well as his power, which he's got.
Yeah.
I understand the bigger guys, it might not have the same sort of effect. And it'd be interesting to see how he comes back and how he adjusts for that fight. But also it's interesting to see now, how does Bivol react? Does that make Bivol even more confident? Does Bivol, after going in there once and having it that comfortable, does he kind of think, maybe next time I can go for a stoppage, maybe he engages a bit more, maybe it makes for a better rematch. I do think the rematch will be even better. So I'd welcome the rematch, to be honest. I do think that I think at this stage of their careers, again, if Canelo goes back to a little bit more going off than just looking for one shot, then I do think he beats Triple G if they were to fight. Yeah. But now that going on the back of his last couple of performances, that fight's a lot more intriguing as well for me, because after the second fight, I honestly thought that the way that Canelo was transitioning and developing as a fighter, and the stage that Triple G was looking older, I thought if they fought a third time, I fancy Canelo to stop him. But it depends on what Canelo, which Canelo turns out, really.
Great stuff. Dave, last one for you. Just for anybody watching, what's next for you and the guys in the stable?
Training tomorrow. That's it. We're just training and waiting. Stephen's going to get a date off of Pro Bellum in the next week, 10 days. So he'll be back out. I imagine he'll be back out July. I'm waiting on a date for Hope. I think he'll be out July probably. Yeah. Jordan Gill is just recovering from his hand op. End of August, September, I would imagine. And I'm just still waiting on Lerone Richards. He's training, he's living the life, he's ticking over. When we get a date, then he can set things up properly. And hopefully he gets a big fight and his career trajectory goes up rather than staying in the same level. The Gongora win was fantastic, but nothing's the Gongora fight. So we was gonna fight. There was a fight that was lined up, all done, and then that guy decided to take an easy tune-up fight and got his arse whooped. So it blew that, and so he's looking for an alternate plan. So we're just waiting on Matchroom and Eddie to come back to us on that one.
Great one. Dave Coldwell, it's Sunday afternoon. I really appreciate your time as ever, mate, because I know you're a busy man.
Cheers, mate. Always a pleasure.
You're a top guy in there. Let's go and watch Liverpool get Man City win and not Liverpool out the title race there.
Got to see that one.
Definitely, mate. Dave Coldwell, always a pleasure, mate. Keep safe.
Cheers, mate. See you later. Bye.